What's up, guys? We did it. We crossed that 1,000 sub threshold. I can't believe it. I can't believe 1,000 of you are willing to watch my rambling videos. We got a pretty good thing going here, guys. We got a pretty positive community. Everybody's been super cool. Thank you for all your questions and your comments and your likes and your shares. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out to me on Instagram. I really, really dig helping you guys out and making everybody make better music. Speaking of which, I get a lot of questions about mixing and my guitars and how do I mix my guitars and what do I do with my guitars. But tonight's video, in order to go into that video, tonight's video is about what I do on my master chain. We're going to go over my master bus mix chain. I put this on every song that I do after tracking, and I mix into it. Pretty common technique. It's known as top-down mixing. I believed I've touched upon it before. But this time I'm going to go over all the settings and what I'm doing. So without further babbling, let's get into it. Need my headphones. All right. So you guys may or may not have heard this song. Play a little snip of it. All right, so what the hell is going on here? Like I said, on every song after I'm done tracking, I will add this onto a master bus and mix into that. So this is the first thing that I do. Basically what I'm doing is I'm adding EQ, compression, and saturation. All right, so like I said, what is going on here? First, we have the virtual mix rack. Full disclosure, I did not come up with these settings. I have tweaked them to my liking. I got a lot of these settings, or this kind of like workflow, from a Creative Live course by Nolly from Periphery, or formerly of Periphery. It's a fantastic mixing course. It is a cornucopia of information and education. So I got this workflow from him. He showed it to me personally. So we got the FGN. It's basically it's a Neve EQ. I am boosting right here. We got 5.54K. I'm boosting 2.71 dB. So basically what I'm doing is it's additive EQ. I'm sort of scooping by adding high end and low end. So we're boosting 5.54K by 2.71 dB, so almost 3 dB. That's fairly significant. And then the other thing I'm doing is I'm boosting at 110 hertz, 2.24 dB. And I have the drive on, which is like a little bit of console saturation. And I have that set to 11.3 dB. Then we have this custom series EQ, and I am boosting at 12K, 2.68 dB. And I feel like that's all that I'm doing with this one. This high-end shelf on the FGN, it's like super sensitive, so that's why in Nolly's course he kind of suggests using this EQ or a secondary EQ, and I did try to mimic the settings with one EQ, and this just ends up working better. And then I have a trimmer on here, and this I just adjust to the track. So right now we'll see I have it set to -9 dB, and that's just so I have headroom going into my master bus compressor, my master. It's for headroom going into the compressor. This is at -9 dB, and I go anywhere from -3, -6, -9. That's about the lowest I go is -9. We'll keep an eye on what this trimmer is doing, and we'll listen to how it sounds with and without the EQ moves. So let's pick apart. So you can hear that FGN is doing a lot. It's doing a lot in the way of like high end and low end. Let's just listen to me turning that on and off. Yeah. Really kind of brings a lot of air, and some would say some fizz into it, but I mean, in the context of a mix, I think everything sounds pretty good. And then you can see that this is, it's cutting pretty significantly, the trimmer. So from there, I go into the FG Gray, which is a emulation of a SSL bus compressor. Other than the threshold, which you tweaked to whatever song you're working on and how much you want to slam the mix, I'm pretty sure that I stole these settings exactly from that Creative Live course. I mean, hey, I'm saving you guys some money from buying it if you don't want to, but I suggest you do. That guy, he knows what he's talking about. I don't. So I have the attack at the second to fastest point. It says 0.3. And then I have the released at the fastest release. The ratio is 4. And I'm assuming you guys know what compression is doing. I am not going to try and get into what compression is doing. That is for smarter people or another video, at the very least. And then on this particular song, my threshold's set to 5.2. So basically what I want is, the way I mix, I want when the snare to crack, I want it to be compressing 2 or 3 dB. So if we watch the meter as the song is playing, you'll see when that snare hits, it's bouncing at least 2 dB. And that's just to kind of like bring the snare hit down, to kind of like make it a little punchier and to bring the rest of the song up. So basically it's like the track is ducking around the snare. So I'll keep an eye on this meter, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So in some cases, it's compressing about almost 3 dB, 2 to 3 dB when the snare is hitting, maybe a dB or so. If I were to mute the drums, all the guitars and the bass and instrumentation might be compressing about a dB. So let's just see what that is doing, or if I'm full of shit. So I'll mute the drums. We'll see what the compressor is doing. So it's just kissing the top of the instrumentation, bringing it all together. And then we'll bring the drums back in. And then from there, we go to some tape saturation using the virtual tape machine. And this is just kind of, I like the way this kind of like tames the top end a little bit, warms up the low end and the kick, and just kind of like, I don't know, it like brings it all together somehow. I feel like perhaps it's doing a little bit more compression, just a little more solidifying of the track. So I'll toggle that on and off. Kind of warms everything up. It brings the mids up in the guitar a little bit, brings them a little bit more forward. So I like what it does. Sounds good. And then what I do, like for my videos and stuff, if this isn't going immediately to an album, I will throw a limiter on it. And I like using the L3LL multi-stereo. It's like a multi-compressor with a limiter on it. It's by Waves. And this thing is awesome. Like, you can tweak these frequency ranges So you can compress the low end, the mid frequency, the high end. You can compress everything a little bit different. It's just not one flat compression. So I tame a lot of, like, I have a sub drop at the top of this break. The guitar's coming in, and it tames that from getting out of control. It just brings everything together. So I'll play it from sort of that intro, and you'll see that when the sub drop comes in down here in the low range, it does some pretty heavy compression. And then it's just like you'll see the mids being compressed when the snare cracks, and then it's also a limiter. So nothing is getting too out of control. It just keeps everything in check. And it only compresses when certain frequencies get out of control. So just watch what it's doing. I'm not going to mute it because it's going to just drop the level significantly. So just watch what these multiple bands are doing for different parts of the song. Now you can see that the limiter is attenuating the signal about 3 dB, and I usually go anywhere from, like, I'll have it attenuate anywhere from 3 to 6 dB. It depends on the song, and sometimes the snare will really push it to that 6 dB, and it sounds good. Other times it doesn't sound too good. If there's a lot of dynamics, I don't like crushing my stuff too much, so I won't have it go out of control, attenuating the whole track. So you'll see it's just between 1 and 3 dB, and because there's a lot of dynamics in this song, there's a kind of a clean part there. Yeah, so you can see it's doing about 1 or 2 dB, not much. Like I said, I don't like totally squashing my song and my transients, and so I don't limit it too much, just enough to get the level up. Perhaps for another video. This is going to be one of the tracks on my upcoming EP, which I am currently working on and hope to have out within the next month or so. I usually send this off to Lander to get mastered. That's what I did with the Partisan component stuff that I have posted on my channel with my buddy Jeff. You can listen to those tracks. I put one of those little floaty, how does this work? Over here. One of the little floaty things. I'll put it up there. And I like Lander. I like what it does. It kind of just makes my mixes sound, it sounds, what it does to my mixes, it just sounds fucking killer. So I'm happy with that service. But if I'm not sending it off for like an EP or for digital distribution, and it's going to just be used in a YouTube video, I'll throw this limiter, and this is how I'll do it. So I do this, like I said, before I start mixing anything in a track. After tracking, I've tracked all my guitars, I've tracked all my bass, vocals if I'm doing that, all my drums are programmed and ready to go. I will throw this on my master bus, and then I will begin the process of mixing the song. And then I'll begin the process of mixing my guitars. So I wanted to show you guys this before I jumped into what I do with my guitars, because I do some post-processing on my guitar tones. I try to do as much as I can with my Helix patch, but I still like to tweak the sound in the context of a mix. So this is my master bus chain, top-down mixing. I mix into this, and in the next one, perhaps we will go over how I mix heavy metal guitar. Until that time, thanks again, guys, for 1K subscribers. It's such a tiny milestone when it comes to YouTube, but to me, it's a big deal because it's 1,000 of you that, you know, get something away from me trying to teach this stuff. And when it's all said and done, all I'm trying to do is help people, you know, make music to make it easier. I know when I was coming up, like I'm some big thing. When I was learning, like I was grateful for anything I came across that was able to kind of point me in the right direction. So, for me to be able to be that for some of you is, you know, it's cool. It's a blessing. So, thanks again, guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Awkward stare. It's gonna fade to black.